The Menendez brothers were resentenced, but freedom isn't guaranteed. The Menendez brothers, Lyle and Erik, are two of the most infamous figures in American criminal history. Convicted in 1996 for the brutal 1989 murders of their wealthy parents, José and Mary Louise, Kitty Menendez, their case captivated the nation and has remained a topic of fascination for decades. In a surprising legal development, the brothers were recently resentenced, a move that reflects broader changes in how the justice system handles life sentences for juveniles. However, despite this resentencing, their release from prison remains far from certain. Background of the case. On the night of August 20, 1989, Lyle and Erik Menendez fatally shot their parents in their Beverly Hills mansion. José Menendez, a wealthy entertainment executive, was shot point-blank in the head, while Kitty was shot multiple times, leaving her unrecognizable. Initially, the brothers denied involvement, but they soon came under suspicion due to their lavish spending in the months following the murders. In 1993, Erik confessed to his psychologist, Dr. Jerome Oziel, whose mistress later reported the confession to the police. The ensuing trials were sensational. The defense portrayed the brothers as victims of lifelong physical and sexual abuse by their parents, claiming the murders were acts of self-defense and desperation. The prosecution countered that the murders were premeditated acts of greed. The first trial ended in a hung jury, but the second trial, held without cameras and under stricter courtroom rules, resulted in both brothers being convicted of first-degree murder. They were sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The shift in legal thinking. In recent years, there has been a dramatic shift in how the American legal system views juvenile offenders. Several landmark U.S. Supreme Court decisions, Miller v. Alabama, 2012, and Montgomery v. Louisiana, 2016, have held that mandatory life without parole for juveniles violates the Eighth Amendment's prohibition on cruel and unusual punishment, unless the youth is found to be permanently incorrigible. Although Lyle was 21 and Erik was 18 at the time of the murders, Erik's age made him eligible for reconsideration under these precedents. Moreover, California law has evolved to reflect the new national understanding of youth culpability. Senate Bill 394, for example, allows those who are under 18 at the time of their crime and sentenced to life without parole to be eligible for a parole hearing after 25 years. Additionally, the state has shown growing recognition of the role abuse and trauma play in criminal behavior, especially for young defendants. The resentencing. In 2024, a Los Angeles County Superior Court judge approved a resentencing for the Menendez brothers. The decision was influenced by a renewed focus on their ages at the time of the crime and the alleged abuse they endured growing up. Resentencing doesn't equate to exoneration or immediate freedom. It means the original sentence is replaced, potentially allowing for the possibility of parole where none previously existed. Now, the brothers' sentences have been modified to life with the possibility of parole, thanks to these legal reforms. After more than 3 decades in prison, Lyle, now in his mid-50s, and Erik, in his early 50s, will now be eligible for parole hearings, though that does not guarantee release. The complicated road to parole. Being resentenced is a necessary step toward potential release, but it is only the beginning of a complex process. The California parole system is notoriously rigorous. The parole board evaluates a number of factors when deciding whether to grant parole, including the severity of the crime, the inmate's behavior in prison, signs of rehabilitation, acceptance of responsibility, and plans for re-entry into society. The Menendez brothers have been model inmates by most accounts. Erik has worked in the prison hospice program, while Lyle has been involved in support and education groups. They have maintained a close bond despite being housed in different prisons for many years, though they were reunited in 2018 at the Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility in San Diego. However, their crime remains a major obstacle. The premeditated violent nature of the murders, combined with the public's enduring fascination and outrage, casts a long shadow. The parole board is under significant pressure in high-profile cases like theirs, where public sentiment often plays an unspoken role. Public opinion and the media. The Menendez case has seen a resurgence in public interest in recent years, fueled by documentaries, true crime podcasts, and a viral wave of sympathy on social media platforms like TikTok. Younger generations, who were not alive during the original trial, have revisited the case with fresh eyes and often express empathy toward the brothers based on the abuse claims and the psychological state they may have been in. While some see them as victims who snapped under unimaginable pressure, others view this narrative as an excuse for what they believe was a calculated, cold-blooded act of murder. This polarization complicates their future prospects. Public opinion is not supposed to influence legal decisions, but in reality, high-profile cases are rarely immune from such pressures. Legal and ethical considerations. The resentencing of the Menendez brothers brings into focus several key legal and ethical questions. How should the justice system treat offenders who commit horrific crimes in the context of abuse and trauma? Can a person who committed murder as a teenager or young adult truly be rehabilitated after decades behind bars? Should parole boards consider the socio-psychological background of inmates, or should their decisions rest solely on the nature of the crime? These are questions with no easy answers. Advocates for criminal justice reform argue that people, especially those so young, are capable of change. They cite psychological studies showing that brain development continues into the mid-20s and that people convicted of crimes at a young age often age out of criminal behavior. Detractors, however, worry about setting a precedent for leniency in cases involving extreme violence. Conclusion. The Menendez brothers' resentencing is a reflection of a changing criminal justice landscape, one that is increasingly acknowledging the complexity of human behavior, especially among young offenders. It is a significant step in their decades-long legal saga but does not assure them freedom. Their eventual fate now lies in the hands of California's parole system, a system that must weigh their past actions, their alleged victimization, their time in prison, and their potential for reintegration into society. Whether the Menendez brothers will ever walk free remains to be seen. But their case continues to challenge the boundaries of justice, redemption, and the possibility of second chances.